Now let's talk about the Lego Civics project. Now when you first start the class, before the students even walk in on the first hour of the class, you want to set up the Lego city ahead of time. So when I teach this class, the first thing I do when I walk into the classroom that they give me is to look for some kind of surface, like usually a large rectangular table, and I'll set up the city as like the first thing I do. We'll give you lots of base plates, and you want to arrange those base plates on the rectangular table. Usually we use somewhere between 12 and 18 base plates, usually closer to 18, but depending a little bit on the size of the class. For a larger class, we need more base plates. And then you want to add in a lake with blue construction paper and a river into your city. We usually try to create these for the teachers ahead of time, but if for some reason we didn't, then you basically just use the blue construction paper and cut out like a little lake and a little river. It's also great to have a little island in the lake. So if you have a smaller green base plate, or if we give you some kind of little island, that's great to put in the middle of the lake. You could even create the island out of construction paper as well, like brown or green construction paper. Now when the kids are working with the Legos, a couple of rules that we go over with the kids that are important to emphasize. One is you want to like spread them out in different corners of the room with Lego boxes. So if you had say like a class of 10 kids, you would want to have 5 different Lego boxes full of Legos. And then you'd want to put each one in like a different corner or a different area of the room, so they're like spread out. The reason for this, of course, is just if you have kids like in bunches, they start to like sometimes fight over the Lego pieces. They're much more likely to like get silly and start getting off topic. So you just want to like put them over in the corners in pairs. The other thing you want to emphasize, this always happens, is kids will naturally be looking for like the perfect piece. They want like a blue piece that's 3 by 2 or something, and they can't find it in their bin, and so it's very natural for them to start like wandering around the room looking for Lego pieces. You want to try to cut that off right away. It's just going to get chaotic if like a lot of kids are walking around the room looking for Legos. So we talked to the kids about that in the video. If kids are starting to run out of pieces, you can like swap boxes between 2 groups. That way they have like a new batch of potential Legos to pick from. Throughout this class, the kids are going to alternate between building their Lego city. So that means like their house originally, and then a city building, and then possibly a second city building or a landmark or a business. We talk about all of that in the videos. Alternate between those building projects and some of the like on paper projects. It's usually a pretty natural transition once you explain it to kids and once we explain it in the videos. The idea that they're building their city, but they're also governing their city. So the class itself, you want to always refer to them as the city council, which is what they are. And they're going to be making decisions about a number of things. Which of the flag proposals will become their official city flag, which of the constitution of laws will become their constitution, which currency will become their official currency, and maybe even that island project that I mentioned earlier. The idea is that for all of these projects, the kids are going to work in groups of usually 2, sometimes kids will work alone, to propose a idea for that particular subject. So like in the case of the flags, each of the groups will design a flag proposal, then you'll hang them up on the wall somewhere. You can assign each flag like a little letter, like A, B, C, D, E, etc. And then the kids vote for their top 2 choices. It's important for them to vote for their top 2 because that way they can vote for themselves if they want to, but they also vote for another. Otherwise you'll have just a big tie most likely. We also, when possible, like to have the kids pick a minifigure or a little Lego person for them to use to represent themselves in the city. So when we have lots of minifigures, I just set them out on a table and they can mix and match like heads with bodies and that kind of thing, and then put themselves in their house or in the Lego city. And then I'll just, once they're done doing that, I'll add the rest of the minifigures into the city, and kids will be like, where'd that minifigure come from? And I'll just be like, oh, people are moving into your city. In the last half hour or so of the program, you want to start to really watch the timer and kind of like give the kids a countdown of like, oh, we have 21 more minutes left to build our city and that kind of thing. And then conclude the class by, if you can hang up the Constitution like on the table, and the official flag and official currency and so forth, and then have the kids like gather around the city. That makes for a nice final class picture that you can do as a kind of like wrap-up activity, and then do the prize box. You want to keep giving them that countdown throughout the last part of the class, just so that they kind of work towards finishing their building that they're working on, rather than having a half-finished building. And then when the parents come in at the end of the class, we don't, at least for the moment, have an official like showing off the city to the parents, but the kids always really want to show the city to the parents, so we always like have the parents come in and they show the city to them, and we point out like the Constitution and the flag, so that the parents kind of know it's more than just building Legos, but they're also doing some governing and thinking about civics. The last thing I'd mention is, at the end of the class, you want to just avoid like tearing down the city in front of the kids. So what I always do is, as the parents come in and the class is over, they're going to probably mull around for 5 or 10 minutes, like looking at the city and taking pictures. I start to clean up like everything else that I can clean besides the city itself, and I'll bring that stuff out to the car and whatnot. And then once everybody has left and like you're pretty sure the kids like aren't in the hallway and that kind of thing, then you take apart the city and just put the big Lego buildings into the boxes and stuff like that. The reason for this obviously is just kind of sad and a little bit depressing for them to have worked so hard in the city for all that time, and then 2 minutes after the city ends, like they see it taken apart. So you just want to avoid that. Kids will often ask me about like, oh, are we going to take apart the city? And I just kind of like avoid that question. I'll be like, oh yeah, we'll figure it out or something. And I'll say, oh, we're going to take a lot of pictures of the city at the end, and just kind of, I mean, I think they know that we're obviously going to take apart the city, but you just want to kind of downplay that aspect of the class.